Jason here as well because I was waiting for him. Yeah, and he's here.
Oh,
So,
right. We should explain Jason's
yeah,
class presence. Would you like to do that, Salome?
I think it would be better if Jason would explain himself. So if
It's Jason here.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I just here now, and I missed the question. My volume wasn't up yet.
No.
Oh, we're just hoping that you can explain how you and your class are participating this meeting.
Okay, yeah. Well, mainly I'm going to move the TV so you can see my class. There's just about 5 of us here, and so they can see you guys. We're all in person and masked up and socially distanced and trying to do everything right.
Hello.
So do you guys just want to, maybe my class could just say hi and just introduce yourself since it's just 5 of us? So we have Brianna here, we have Hannah, and Haley, and Dylan in the back, and Tyler in the back. And we have been reading, we've been reading a lot about digital media. We've been reading articles from Tufekci and Michael Goldhaber and the attention economy, and Jean Lanier and a number of different people. And when we saw we just finished watching this documentary, The Social Dilemma. And so I wanted them mainly just to kind of watch and observe and take part in an academic discussion and see kind of what we do. And we also have another student joining us, who's Bree is here now too. So yeah, we're really just gonna listen. And if you guys have any questions for this panel of experts, then we would love to participate in that way too.
Jason, is this an undergrad or a graduate, high school? What level?
These are our freshmen at Go Give It Community College.
Okay, thank you.
Upper Peninsula, Michigan.
Yeah, this is really exciting. We've never done something like this before, so it's really cool to have students with this particular topic, I think. So
Yeah.
We just watched the documentary. We just finished it about 10 minutes ago. That's why we're running a little. We've had a little discussion about it, and then I think through the discussion, I'll probably keep us on mute just in case there's some background noise as we're joining as a group, and then I'll unmute it as we need.
Thank you, Jason. I think, this is a unique event for Media Club discussion because this is the first time when we have students and young kind of participants and listeners during these discussions. For me, this is the second time I'm hosting this discussion. And it's interesting that the first time I did that, it was last October 7th. And this is the second time and it's still October. It's again October, and this is my favorite topic. So I'm glad and I'm honored to be the host of this discussion. I'm going to tell you about myself, and then I think we can go ahead and make a very short introductions, who you are, from where are you joining us today, and how did you hear about this discussion club and especially this discussion today. My name is Salome. My last name is too large and usually hard to pronounce, but I'm gonna pronounce it for you once, and that's it. Salome Abkhazishvili. Originally, I'm from country of Georgia. Right now, I'm based in Tbilisi, Georgia, and it's almost like 8 p.m. here. But it's a great time to participate in a discussion. I'm not sleepy. I'm ready to participate and host this discussion. I spent the last 2 years in United States as a Fulbright scholar. I did my master's degree in communication at the University of Southern Indiana. Erin Gibson, who is joining us today from University of Southern Indiana, she is my good friend, and we did some media literacy events on campus, and it was absolutely like a first time we did these events. Now she's teaching media literacy class, and she will talk about that later. I'm really, really interested in to do some media literacy projects, to lead media literacy projects. right now I'm kind of doing some research what's going on in my home country in terms of media literacy projects, and then I will take lead and I will do something. Today, as you all know, we are discussing social dilemma, this docudrama. That's how typically we read about this documentary in reviews, in film reviews. So this is a docudrama, and we will have some kind of like introductions, and we will talk about this documentary, and then we will have 5 critical questions that we will gonna apply to this documentary, and then we will just summarize what we think about this and what we can learn from this documentary. Okay, I'm gonna finish here, and we can go ahead and make very, very short introductions. Who you are, from where are you joining us, and how did you hear about this discussion?
Salome, can I jump in and make a suggestion? We have quite a large group of people today, and a lot of people are new. How would you guys feel about doing this in breakout rooms? Maybe just kind of small groups, and then every time we group together, we can kind of meet new people. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yes, I mean, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Because we were gonna use breakout rooms later, so we will still need these breakout rooms. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, I'm gonna break us up into groups of 3 to 4, and then we'll come back in. How long do you want to do introduction, Salome?
I think 5 to 7 minutes. I think 5 minutes is good time. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do 5 minutes. Okay, cool. See you guys in 5. Oh, and now we're early. Sorry, guys. Erin, do you teach advertising every time you teach?
Well, yes, I try to, I just start off the class with, I just decided not to use a textbook because I just think it's an intro class. It's 100 level class. And so the Potter textbook on media literacy is just a little too dense for them. So what I focus on is teaching them the information neighborhoods at the beginning of the semester, and then we break them down one at a time. So we look at journalism, propaganda, advertising, publicity, and then we have like a week on each of those. Right now we're in the middle. I timed it perfectly so that as we're leading up to the election, we're talking about the actual news literacy portion of it. So
it sounds like you might be familiar with the Center for News Literacy's materials.
Oh yes, love
them.
Also the News Literacy Project, and oh yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we'll have to talk more later.
Yeah.
I don't know if Salome's back.
Yeah.
She's here. I see her.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I'm here and back. So can we go ahead and start?
Yes, please.
Okay, so first of all, I kind of prepared Google Slides where we can I'm going to share it with all of you, and we can apply 5 critical questions to this documentary. But first of all, before I introduce this kind of model of discussion, I'm gonna give you like about 5 minutes, just a short, just say your thoughts about this documentary, what you think, and what's your impressions, those who already watched it. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring this Google Slides here.
So Salome, I'll go ahead and start. So
Yeah.
I have been involved, I mean, I was a beta Gmail user, right? So I was the person that was involved in like all of this digital media and social media. And like, I'm not young. My kids are 20, 18, and 13. But it was interesting because I came to this documentary because my 20-year-old recommended it to me. And so I thought that was super interesting. He came home from college. They got, shut down really early on. And he says, Mom, have you watched this show on Netflix? I think you would really enjoy it. He says, I'm trying really hard to focus on not being on my phone so much. So it was fascinating that it came to me from my son, who I felt like I've spent my life kind of helping them through this environment, but not really knowing if I had or not. And so for him to bring it up and say it's kind of creepy was fascinating to me.
So what exactly did he say? Was it kind of like a recommendation? Was he, what was the message do you think he received?
So it was interesting. Like he really thought, his message about, are you controlling what you see, or is what you see controlling you? And his kind of question around, are the things coming to you because of the things that you put out there, or are you going out there to seek the things that, are they drawing you in?
I think this is this kind of dramatic part that worked on him, especially because this was the whole idea of this. What's the word you described this? Not the documentary part, but the dramatic part.
Dramatization.
Yeah. I think that this worked really well because this was the whole idea.
The persuasion.
Yes.
And I think that's, I really appreciated that part. I also, when I walked away, I was really fired up and I turned off the television and I said, burn it all down. That was like what I said it to my husband, right? But days after, I felt myself feeling a little bit persuaded and manipulated by it. And it didn't set as well with me in the days afterwards. And I have been kind of couldn't wait to discuss it here because some of those issues, and I've seen some threads on Twitter as well that kind of talk about some of the overgeneralizations that some of these tech people are making about screen time and those kinds of things, and maybe not quite caught up with all of the research. So I'm interested in hearing that.
Thank you for bringing that up, Erin. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, Jen. Yeah.
Well, I was brought my attention. So I'm 60, and it was my stepmother, who's 75, who told me about it, and who's frantically on many social channels, much more than I am. I've resigned from a lot of things because I've taught media literacy, and so at the end of one semester, I did a pledge, and half my class and I unsigned, like, canceled our accounts. But anyways, but I have to say that I'm also a documentary filmmaker, and I felt like the movie is not a good documentary just from a pure documentary point of view, because it's in certain way, actually, and I read an interview that said it's not a documentary, it's a polemic. And so I thought that was an interesting review that we can all share those links later. On the other hand, from a propaganda point of view, I think it's fantastic, because if it scares people enough that, even though it's exaggerating, if it scares them enough, it will maybe at least make people do what you mentioned your son or others have said they would do, which is to at least reconsider, at least try to learn more about the economic impetus behind all of these things, and then these byproducts that end up being, death in some countries, including here. The one thing I will say though critically is that the elephant in the room is capitalism and the profit model. They're talking about we can do it better. Like, oh, we feel so mea culpa, we've resigned. Oh dear, oh woe is me. We're going to do it better. Well, if it's still going to be within capitalism, it's still going to be the profit model or the profit impetus. So I'll be super interested to hear what the 5 critical questions are. And yeah, so that was my overall. I still recommend it to people because, like I said, I think it makes people go, whoa, and that's important.
Thank you, Jen. We were going to talk about methodology, what methods were used to persuade the viewers and audience later in 5 critical questions. So yeah, we'll talk about this later. Thank you. Who else wants to kind of make a general comment on the docudrama?
I didn't get to catch the docudrama on Netflix because A, I don't have subscription, and B, I didn't get the time. I mean, I could have, subscribed to and watched it. But classes are online and it's crazy, but it's funny how all the interviewers, the tech insiders, were white dudes. And there are so many critics who actually do this as their full-time job. And I think the review that Salome shared by ZML, was it? Yeah. So they, actually named like a list of social media and technology critics. And I don't think any of them have been included in the narrative. I also liked Rashkov's piece, the video that he shared on his LinkedIn. And it's interesting to see how he said that, dismiss everything, negative and just, be thankful that they are finally woken up to things that we've been talking about for nearly a decade now, and they want to be included in the narrative. So let's just be all encouraging and get them to be a part of this. So yeah, that was good.
I was really surprised, especially given the role of capitalism and these tech pioneers who are now lamenting that they ever had a part in it. None of them, though, talked about data ownership, which is really at the heart of the profit motive and how the profit is gained. So I felt that even though they were dissing the...
You muted yourself.
Professor Joles, we can't hear you. You muted yourself by mistake in the middle of what you were talking.
I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that was on.
Tessa, I apologize. That was me. I was muting everyone else for background noise, and it you kept creeping up, and I totally muted you. I'm really sorry about that.
That's all right. I'm sorry to take so much time. But anyway, my point was that I thought it was highly interesting that these people from the technology industry who are now lamenting that they ever had a part in it, they still didn't address the fundamental economic structure that drives it, which is data ownership. And I was really surprised because I thought, my gosh, they know, if anybody knows, they know that it's data ownership that drives this. And that data is the fundamental currency that's being sold. And so at any rate, I felt that there was still some dissembling in terms of what is really going on. And so I felt that even though they talked about pulling behind the curtain, they really didn't, because the core issue never was addressed.
Thank you.
So my review of this documentary has been like, it is half truth and half propaganda at times, because I have been, for the last few months since the starting of this pandemic, I have been working with tech workers in India and how they think about things and how they perceive things in their own surroundings. And what I find with them is that they perceive it how they reflect on the world in ways which is very kind of like a very oversimplistic way of thinking of things. Like caste is always bad, but caste is not a problem in India anymore, giving an example from India itself. And then there's political examples like right wing is not always bad. Things like that have been creeping up in the tech world right now. So that's also a point.
I thought it was telling that in the beginning of the documentary, if I recall, there was something where they asked them, what is the core problem? And they all kind of threw their hands up without thinking any deeper about that. So that really stimulated my thinking, what's really underneath all of this? And of course, I looked at it from my own perspective. But what I think an important component is that it's a narrowed way of thinking. And ultimately, that's fear-based thinking, and that's what competition does, is you narrow your focus. I call it the shrunken frame syndrome. So all of a sudden, values aren't part of the picture because you're in survival mode. And ultimately, that's the problem with many aspects of our culture now, is that we're moving so fast without really knowing where we're going or where we're being taken.
I think that the points that have been made here are very valuable about lack of focusing on data and on capitalism as a driving motive for the internet today. And I feel that not only are the tech people who are involved here not honest about their own shareholdings and their own role in this, but to expect young people and students to understand that model is such a fallacy. And I think it's crucial when teaching about the internet and literacy is to enlighten them about this role, because it's such an unequal partnership. They're making a bargain, but there's no transparency at all. And I find that in my own teaching of internet literacy, actually showing them who the strings and what's going on behind the screen and the technology is a crucial first step for them to understand how they're being used and exploited. What they then choose to do with that later on is the second step that we can discuss, but not to understand how the whole thing works and what the rules of the game that they're playing are, I think is so unfair and crucial to rectify.
I would suggest to start working on these 5 critical questions that I borrowed from Renee Hobbs' book, Create to Learn. And Samantha, I'm not sure if this book is already published. I think it's already published, right? So yeah, so I borrowed these 5 critical questions from her book, which I think when I'm watching something, I'm always trying to apply those 5 critical questions that helps me to understand what's the message, what the audience, what's omitted there. So it's a basic media literacy question. So I'm going to share the Google slide link in the chat. So you can go ahead and open that. And I'm going to ask Samantha, so because since I've never done this group breakout groups before, can you help me to split our participants into 5 groups? And then we can give, for example, first group will work on the question number 1. Second group will work on the question number 2. And then we will come up here and we will kind of summarize, and each representative of each group will kind of make comment what's the group suggestion, what's the group thought on the questions. Does it make sense what I'm saying for all of you? Great. So yeah, you can go ahead and open this.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are we using the slide deck like we've done in the past? Are we putting our information on the slide deck?
You can do that, but I mean, you don't have to. It's just I just created those slides for you to have the question in front of you to kind of discuss and talk about this question. So,
okay, thanks.
Of course.
I also have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Is our breakout room number the question number that we have to follow?
Yeah, so
my breakout room is 4, so I do question 4.
That's it. Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, we're having a breakout room, eh?
I guess we are.
What did you think of the movie?
I think I was a little put out by the whole like young white privileged male tech industry. I guess I would have, it made me want to do research immediately into when they first got that niggly feeling that something wasn't right and when they decided to leave.
Right?
How long did they live with that moral conundrum?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, hey, Daryl. Hey, David. Oops, David is not there. Yeah, I feel like clearly that was the point of it, right? They were trying to show that the tech industry is feeling the need for a mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, right? And yeah. I felt like, I'm sure that, they don't sleep well at night. And so maybe this felt good. Yeah. And you know what? We all need to come clean.
Yeah.
So I felt like, okay, that's what this was. This was tech trying to come clean, but it's like,
yeah.
How far that feels good to them, right? But what about us?
And it's a minuscule, portion of tech.
Right.
So, it might also be, some tech that have left and figured out how to do something a little bit more honorable, tweaking those that are still in the biz.
Yeah.
I mean, I never felt comfortable with that segment being in charge of that segment.
Exactly. And some of them were quite sketchy, would you admit? During the interviews, didn't you have like queasy feelings about some of those characters?
Well, it was sort of the same as Trust Me, right? Like, I'm going to go in, make my, millions, and then come out and write a tell-all.
Right, right. Right.
You know, and you're glad they did it because we need to know that behind the scenes stuff, but you know, I just wish there was a better way of, you know, doing a little bit more pre-planning rather than this rush to make your millions before you're 35 and then feel bad about it.
Right, right. Well, certainly the feeling I got was, okay, so this is baked deep into American history and culture. The first one to innovate in TV shaped the way TV got regulated, you know, based on the radio model, and the first one to regulate the telephone. I mean, the first telephone, sort of like, it's almost like we reward the fastest and the first, and they do end up shaping the regulation. So one of the things that I missed in the documentary was there was absolutely no reference to the role that regulation could play, or I mean, I felt like I don't think people who watch this got any more knowledge or insight on regulatory solutions.
Which is why I sent you that thing about asking Amy Klobuchar, Renee, because my feeling is, like, you know, last year at NMLC, I did that thing called top-down media literacy, where it was all about policy and regulation, you know, and getting policy in. And I just think it has to be a part of that where do we go from here conversation, is what can we do on the ground? What can we do as media literacy professionals? But what can the people at the top do so that we can meet in the middle and have an informed population?
Right, and that topic is really, what's the best way to teach about media regulation in a way that will enable voters to have an informed opinion about the different options. I tackled this like a tiny bit in the propaganda book, because I try to address the idea that tech companies say, well, we're dealing with it through content moderation, right? So we don't need regulation because we are doing content moderation. But content moderation is protected with Section 230 of the CDA. That law lets them totally off the hook if they make bad decisions about content moderation. And I feel like that's the problem, is they have there's no skin in the game if they do it badly.
Did you see AOC's tweet about that recently?
Mm-mm.
So, you know, there was this whole thing about death threats to Trump, or you know, kind of people extolling his dying. And AOC, who has had tons of death threats, you know, her way through social media, just wrote, "You mean you could have been doing this all along?"
Right. Yeah.
You know,
not
like,
for her.
For you when
not
I need
for her.
you.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. But for the privileged few, exactly right. It's an editorial decision they're free to make or not make as they choose.
Yeah.
So, aha. So it must be the small groups are coming back. Are you coming back?
We are.
They're coming back. They're coming back. I love this part of a Zoom meeting. Don't you just love that part of a Zoom meeting when everybody comes back?
Renee, where have you been?
Sorry, I got it here as soon as I could.
I did not come back. I was kicked out from the other group because because the group was closed. But anyway, so nice to be back with the last group.
So I see there was a really good discussion in small groups, and we have 13 minutes left until we finish today's discussion. And I'm going to use maybe next 7 minutes or 10 minutes to kind of bring the major ideas from small groups. And I'm going to share the same Google Slides here just to see the questions once again. And answer the question. So the first group number first had the question, who is an author and what's the purpose of this drama? Who wants to answer this question from group number 1? Is there any volunteer who wants to talk about this?
Well, I'll volunteer on it. And by the way, hello. We haven't talked to each other in a long time. Yeah. Who's the author? We said that this is a complex question because, you know, there are the finance people, there's the producer, the director, certainly the people who appeared in the documentary are authors in a sense because they're contributing to the content. And so this is a more complex picture or question that it appears. And in terms of the purpose, though, we felt there was definitely a profit motive because this was a Netflix, you know, it's offered through Netflix. So we know that there was an exchange of money. And then in terms of purpose, well, you know, it seems like there were a lot of purposes in terms of trying to influence opinion, you know, and there were elements of propaganda to it, you know, I felt. But at any rate, the purpose was primarily profit, but then beyond that, certainly there were a lot of other intentions on the content.
So Tessa, can I just point out that the production company that created this is controlled by Jeff Skoll. Jeff Skoll is the founder of eBay. He made his bazillions by being the founder of eBay. And the company that you're most familiar with him controlling is a company called Participant Media. Participant Media makes socially conscious documentaries.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Hello.
Hey.
How are you?
Okay,
Anybody wants to add anything from group number 1 regarding the first question before we move to the second question? I guess no, so we can go ahead and hear what techniques are used to attract and hold attention. Who wants to answer this question from group number 2? Anybody from group number 2?
I'll answer it.
Go ahead.
Oh, we got it, Erin?
You got it.
Okay. What I can remember off the top of my head, we talked about the fact that they personalized a lot of the people who they interviewed was personalizing the issue, right? So we contributed to this, but now we're seeing how it's affecting our lives. There was also the fact that they brought in a lot of experts, you know, people with, you know, high titles and things like that to talk about this issue, giving them credit, you know, with an attempt to give them this credibility. And then also the process in which they constructed the documentary, in which they used kind of 3 different, you had animation, you had narrative, narrative, and then you also had the documentary, right? So kind of having all of these different modes that pulled on different types of emotions, right? With the documentary giving this air of, you know, this is real, these are facts, whereas the narrative kind of pulled on that emotional string, and then the animation brought in kind of the fun and the play. So I think overall we were thinking they used every technique that was available, but those were 3 that we talked about.
Yeah, thank you. Let's go ahead and talk about question number 3. What lifestyles, values, and points of view are depicted in this docudrama? I think this is an important question because you can really see what they are trying to persuade, what's their main message.
Well, I'll say a few things just because I took notes, and then someone can correct me if I missed something. We said, well, we were all shocked kind of, or made comment on the fact that this was an extremely upper middle class household with people giving people rides to school and people sitting around the school and watching things on their screen, which is not allowed in any school I've been at, and in the cities. And so we thought that that made it less impactful for folks outside of that. And then another value or point of view that a bunch of us came to from different places was this idea of lowest common denominator, or like similar to the abstinence only way of doing sex ed, which was sort of like, oh my God, this is what's going to happen to you. Scare story. Somebody brought up Reefer Madness, which is a film that a lot of us saw in school a long time ago. And so it was like that it's either horrible, evil things are happening, or you should never go there. I think Michael said a great thing. He said, oh my God, your phone is spying on you. And then he said, okay, so now what? Now what do we do? So that, and I don't know if anyone and someone else said it was tech bros talking to tech kids. So
can I add to that? Tech bros talking to tech kids. Pam and I talked about I got a very there's a part of the Catholic Mass, for those of you who are Catholic. There's a part of the Catholic Mass where you strike your breast 3 times and you say, mea culpa, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa, which means forgive me, forgive me, forgive me. Or I'm at fault, I'm at fault, I'm at really, really big fault. And I feel like this was the tech gurus kind of trying to seek a relief from forgiveness, or maybe a release of the guilt they feel for foisting this technology on the world. Just saying.
I just wanted to add that, and this is something that we discussed in our group as well. I thought this was out and out a plug for Center for Humane Technology, where they just want to not dismantle the tech that's ruining us, but just package the old thing into something new and just give it back to us again, saying, here you go, feel better about this because we did something about it.
We don't have a lot of time left, so if we can summarize the answers to the question number 4. Some of you mentioned that this docudrama was recommended by young students to adult kind of audience. So it has two different audience, adults and young audience. What do you think? How might different people interpret this message differently? Group number 4, who is volunteering.
Yeah, we were in the group with Jason's class actually, which was perfect. So I don't know if Jason or students want to talk about it, but just as an observer and participant, it was very different from those of us who grew up not with technology like media as it is now and with them. But I'll let them speak because you don't need to hear from an old person like me.
To say, it was really hard as a composition instructor in me for that first question, who is the intent, or who is the author and what is the purpose? It's hard to divorce that from the question of who is the intended audience, because they're so related, author, purpose, and audience. And in our group, how might different people interpret this message? We found that, especially the students coming from Gen Z who are immersed in this and may not have the knowledge and the sort of experience of how these things operate behind the scenes, took the documentary a lot differently, because we're not thinking necessarily at this age about as much about capitalism and data storage. We're thinking about the very real concerns of cell phone addiction and mental health problems. And so a couple of my students had some thoughts about that. I don't know if they want to jump in.
Well, I just kind of talked about how when the girl had her box, her phone in the box, and she smashed it open, and the 13-year-old had the youngest one had the most addiction to it, and it affected her the most with what people were saying online about her. And I think that it is really that addictive, and it's not even that, it isn't really dramatic, but I mean, that's kind of where I was coming from with it, and I saw that, and I'm thankful for that somebody mentions that, and talks about it. And shoot, what were you saying, Brianna?
I was talking about how when I was listening to everybody else's points, a lot of people were bringing up the fact that they thought this documentary was mostly about, you know, big tech companies and how much money they're earning, and they were focusing a lot on that. But I think you are missing the point that a lot of this documentary is focused on mental health and how social media is greatly affecting the younger generation's mental health. And a lot of those, you know, data entries are put into the documentary. But I think that from our perspective, you're able to notice those things more because we are directly affected by them and we have first-handedly experienced it. And I think that when you're not a part of that generation, you are missing that point because you've never experienced it.
Thank you so much. This is why important, Renee already mentioned in the chat, to have student voices here, because none of us, I think, mentioned mental health problem so far, and we're already finishing kind of in the end of discussion. And great, this is a great point. Thank you so much for mentioning that. And question number 5, I was part of this group, and what's omitted? This is the most important question, I think, when we're doing critical analysis of media. And Michelle and Frank and all other members had this their opinions, and I think we agreed on that. It's one-sided, very much subjective understanding of the problem, and it's missing a lot of objectivity in this docudrama, and like a heaviness of this problem. And correct me if I'm wrong and I missed something, Michelle, Frank, and Sagnik, and you can add if I miss anything from our discussion, group number 5. Is there anything?
No, that was all that we were talking about.
I was in the discussion. I haven't seen the film, but I've learned a lot today about it. And what I was saying is, it sounds from what you're all saying like real student voice was omitted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure. Well, thank you so much. I think we need to kind of finish today's discussion since we have an hour for this discussions series. And I'm really, you know, it was a, I would say, really good docudrama to start talking about and ask a lot of questions. And I'm really, really sorry that we don't have a lot of time to ask all of those questions, but we can always continue discussion on Twitter. I think Davina already started this discussion post, and we can continue discussion there, and we can continue this discussion in upcoming sessions that are already planned as part of this media club discussion. And I will let Samantha talk about upcoming events if she wants to make any comment about that.
Well, next month's read is by our keynote speaker from Northeast Media Literacy Conference, right?
Oh, great. Yeah, I think
so. If hopefully most of the people on this call might be attending the conference on November 6th and 7th, and the book discussion by Whitney Phillips called You Are Here is sort of the perfect lead in to our conference theme of where do we go from here?
This is a really good kind of question for the upcoming. It will be a good continuation of the discussion we've had today. Well, thank you so much for being here today and participating in this discussion. Thank you, Media Education Lab, to letting me to do this to be a host once again. And I wish you the best wishes, sending best wishes from Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you very much as well, Salome.
Thank you,
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a nice one.
Bye.
Enjoy.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Salome, that was great. Great work.
Thank you.
Fantastic
Thank
job.
You,
that was 35. That's
how many people were on the call at the most?
36.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. I like the idea that we continue the conversation on Twitter. Davina, you're right. There's a lot of interest in this film, and the students were great.
Yeah.
It was amazing to have them involved. I feel like we got to do that every month now. Students,
thank you, students.
come back next month and do it again with us.
Yes.
Thank you, Jason, for the invitation to them.
Thank you.
Thank you, students.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us, guys. We're going to